if this comes out to be true in his favor, I'm glad that this is the process that it took. But at the same time, I will be the first one in line to say, if it comes out that he was in the wrong, fuck that guy. Yeah, I'm not going to go see another Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Yeah, I think I do think this is very important to say that, like, the reason that we are doing this specific story is because new information has just come out. And so all of this information gives us kind of a way to facilitate the conversation that will come after we lay out all the information.
Yes. That's more of a broad thing than just the Johnny Depp, Amber Heard.
But just story. kind of all get into the same mindset of kind of what the conversation will look like. Because I think that very much so, like, from the beginning, when we talked about the episode 11, like Hollywood, it should always be a conversation. It should continue, and we should all be able to discuss this and so that we can take more steps forward and progress and get more handle these things more correctly. Yeah. So, let's jump into this timeline.
Sure. In 2012, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, they started dating.
2 years later, they're engaged.
And that was January, and then in May of 2014, we have some text that surface about possible assault behavior.
And I think this is, just kind of like the red flags started popping up. Yeah. They were coming out. They were coming to light. We were starting to hear about them. Yeah. The next year in February, they're married.
Yeah, and also too, what I just said about in May, the Depp's assault. Yes. Because there's what will come back up later is kind of from an Amber Heard perspective, where it's like, oh, was she doing it or was he doing it? Was it twisted by the media or however? So again, that was in May. It was about him. Just throwing that out there. Just want to be very clear here as we talk through this.
So in March of 2015, they're married, and we have Johnny Depp having injured his hand on the set of one of the Pirates movies.
Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Ugh. And
can you find him for me?
But it comes out that Amber Heard comes out and is telling people that it's not from the actual, like, a movie injury. It's that they were in this heated argument and things kind of got out of hand, and he, like, punched a wall and like hurt himself there. Yeah,
and based on the facts of the way that they were presented, it seemed like it was corroborated that it was on the set of Pirates. So it was like people saw it happen, and then they heard her say, and so that's another red flag, kind of, not that we're going to go back and forth with like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, kind of like, oh, well, he did this and she did this, but it was like, that is kind of the first instance where we've seen, no, it was corroborated. He hurt his hand on set, and then she's telling people that it was not on set, but it was like people saw it on set.
Yeah, go ahead.
In December 2015, for 2016, Heard filed for a temporary restraining order, and in that restraining order, it claimed there was an incident in December when she feared for her life, and this is when the pictures of bruises on her face and a cut on her lip surfaced. That's something. There's no real point there. We're just reading the timeline.
Yeah. April 2016, Heard claims that Depp showed up to her birthday party intoxicated, cross-faded.
A little crossy.
And shoved her to the ground after, like, grabbing her by the hair. And then a month later, we have her showing up to a Met Gala by herself alone. He's not here.
I feel like I keep having, like, jokes pop up in my head to, like, joke about, like...
Do it tastefully.
You said Heard claimed that Depp showed up to her birthday party crossfaded, and I was like, crossy! And then you said, and shoved her face into the floor, and I was like, fuck, I can't... I just made a joke, but it's not... okay. Anyway, they're just pointing that out. And then that same May, police were called after an altercation between Heard and Depp. Heard at first claimed the altercation was physical, where Depp threw a cell phone at her and pulled her hair again. And then the police arrive, and there's no evidence of this. This is corroborated by the LAPD. This is like definitely true. There's no speculation in that. And Depp wasn't there. Not saying that he was never there, but that there was no evidence at all of an altercation. At least that's what the police said.
Yeah.
We could talk about the police on another episode.
Oh, let's do it. But like, especially here, it kind of, we see it flip is at the beginning, this was a physical altercation, and then her story and claims afterwards, once the LAPD were there, was that it was just a verbal dispute.
Yeah. And also, if I remember correctly, we didn't write this down, but I remember it was like the neighbors too also kind of corroborated that, where it was like it was just yelling, and then they saw him leave.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't there, and then it turns into this, whatever. Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff in May. It's like...
It's bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Rapid fire.
On the 23rd, Amber files for divorce. And then on the 27th, another temporary restraining order is filed against Depp. And then on the 28th, coming to his defense are two of Johnny Depp's exes saying that he'd never shown that type of behavior before. And one of his wives said that she didn't believe him, or she didn't believe her at all. Just in regards to his character. Mm-hmm.
So August 12th, we get here, and there's a hearing for Heard to receive a permanent restraining order. I'm sorry. The hearing had already happened for the permanent restraining order, and Heard did not testify.
Yeah.
And we get a video leaking of Depp throwing a wine glass, and him and all of the people around him, many sources have stood firm in that this was an edited video, and then we have Heard saying that she didn't release it, which, okay. But this is all leading up to the divorce settlement. Yeah.
And we have to remember, too, at this point, this is in the limelight. I remember this. Mm-hmm. I remember reading about this at the time. Yeah. Even in, like, tabloid-type sort of journalism. But I still remember this stuff. I remember seeing that video and, not really knowing what to think. As I said earlier, I was a fan of Johnny Depp, and I, even now, in this conversation, I still don't know if I'm going to, like, call myself a fan just because I want to wait until we know everything. But I definitely, that video, it's out there. You can still find it. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
So now we're in August. We're still in August here. Okay. So we've got some photos resurfacing about, with the hand injury. We've got new information, leaking that there was a suspected affair going on.
With Billy Bob Thornton, of all people. I can make that joke. I'll make it. Billy Bob Thornton? That's who you're going to go for? Bad Santa?
The Bad News
Bears. Get out of here. Go for anyone else. You're asking for trouble with a guy named Billy Bob.
He was great in Fargo.
Yeah, but I just think of... whenever I think of Billy Bob Thornton, I immediately think of the two films that we brought up immediately. And that's all I can think of.
So day after all these photos and such come out, the divorce case is settled. The restraining order request is withdrawn. Depp pays out $7 million to settle the case, including all the attorney fees and stuff. But here's like the kind of weird thing about all of this, which like I can see both sides, and I'll kind of go into it. Is a lot of the divorce filings and all of the court things and stuff were like very intentionally kept private.
Yeah.
Not a lot of information was released, which I understand. You're two big stars.
You're in the limelight.
You're always in the limelight. You want some kind of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
But I and this is, a lot of this is speaking like I have no experience with this kind of thing, but I feel like it's hard to, like, I feel like if this was something I was going through, I would want everything to be out in the open. Yeah. Like, I would want to be like, this is everything that I said, this is what's going on in this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
it's funny you say that, though, because there's some stuff, I was doing some more reading about it just to try to read up as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people kind of in Johnny Depp's corner were saying that he was just, or is just, too good a man to push it. He definitely didn't want to be in that relationship anymore.
Okay.
And so he's like, all right, I'll settle, and that'll be that. And so for everyone else's knowledge, and this is where kind of actually Fantastic Beasts come into the conversation, which I never thought I would say.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were like, what the hell, J.K. Rowling, calling her out specifically for... because at this point, Fantastic Beasts came out in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a tiny cameo at the end of that one as Grindelwald. And then production moved forward on Fantastic Beasts with all this stuff coming to light.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to remember, too, this is the end. This is all happening in 2016.
Yeah.
And this movie came out this year? Did it come out, or was it at the very end of last year, Fantastic Beasts?
It's very close.
It was one of the two. Sure. It's very, very recently, though. Yeah. It's been out. And so people were like, what the hell, J.K. Rowling? All this stuff has come forward. And so the reason that people who are in Johnny Depp's corner are claiming that he really is that good of a guy is that J.K. Rowling is in his corner as well and knew all what we're about to talk about next and knew that he was not in the wrong and felt good about him still portraying Grindelwald. In honestly, in kind of the Hollywood, in light of everything that's happening in Hollywood, I'm surprised. But I think, too, there's something to be said about just... apparently there is some significant evidence against Amber Heard.
Mm-hmm. Against the claims
that she's made, which is why he still was in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And I think it's interesting, too, just to remember that, like, Johnny Depp lost Captain Jack because of all this and was just okay with it, because I think that if I was going to, like, try to understand where he's coming from, maybe... I think, and this is just objective, I think that maybe he was not wanting to put a stop to the Me Too movement. I actually believe that.
I get what
I think that he wanted to just settle.
Just
here's
let it be
$7 million. It's done.
Yeah.
I'm done. He felt that he was done with it. He's Johnny Depp. He's still going to be making money from Captain
he's
Jack.
He's going to be fine.
And now Fantastic Beasts and those things. Just the royalties on Nightmare on Elm Street alone, he'd be fine. But you know what I mean in that conversation where it's just like, I think he might have just wanted to, like, let it die and be done with it. But then in 2018, Heard did an opinion piece in the Washington Post where she spoke about the domestic abuse that she'd suffered. And before all this, though, Amber Heard was, like, pushed to the forefront of the Me Too movement. Which is also why I believe that if we're talking about kind of, at least from Johnny Depp's perspective, maybe that's why I didn't say anything. Because I think the Me Too movement is so important.
Right.
And maybe that's why he did it. Maybe his lawyers or PR person was like, let it die. Maybe he didn't want to let it die or whatever. But we didn't really hear anything from him until
very
this
recently,
this year.
This came out. And I think... especially coming from like that corner, it is especially where a lot of the kind of internet is, because that's where a lot of things get a lot of flack. Is any little, like a tiny little speck of even a chance that someone could be like spreading false claims and stuff, people are going to pick that shit up and try to completely invalidate a movement that is